This is the Afghan or Tunisian basic or simple stitch with a row of Marguerite in between to add a decorative element, and you can include as many simple stitches as you want or simple stitch rows in between your Marguerites. I'm starting off, instead of using the Afghan hook, which you would normally use, I'm working on a simple basic crochet hook just because I'm doing a small sample here, and the pattern calls for 2 plus 1, so my chain stitch is 11 because I have that 2 plus 1 pattern that I'll be doing with the Marguerite row. You'll notice I've already added my loops onto the hook. I like to work back through that back loop so I have a clean edge on the other side. You'll also notice normally you skip that first chain. However, I used to add the extra loop at this end, but now I make this corner a little bit stronger by pulling up loops in each chain. I do not skip the first one. And the reason for that is when I do my cast off, I don't do the 1 and then 2 through the rest of the row. I do yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. I do the same cast off on every row. It's the yarn over, pull through 2. Some people can make the yarn over, pull through 1 edge look fine. It doesn't work for me. It always never looked a nice clean chain edge like the dominant side does. So on my non-dominant side, I always want to have the 2 loops there. Now we're working on the simple stitch. So we see there's 2 bars. There's a back bar and a front bar. And we're inserting our hook under the front bar only and pulling up a hook or a loop on our hook. And I'm doing that all the way across. I'm just going under that front bar and pulling up a loop. I'm trying to remember to keep it loose because I have a tendency to crochet very tightly, so I'm trying to keep it a little bit looser. And when you get to the end, let's see, I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And so I'm down to my last one, and I have to remember now to put my hook under those last 2 chains. And that's going to start being my edge that I'm working up the side. And this is a time, too, where it's really important to count your loops. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. So I have 11 loops on my hook, because after I finish the Marguerite row, I want to make sure I have the same number of loops. Otherwise, I'm going to start losing or increasing, but usually losing loops. So I'm doing my yarn over, pull through 2 across, and you can decide how many rows of this basic or simple stitch you want to use before you do your Marguerite row. I'm just going to do the 1 here so we can show you then the stitch. Now to begin, and again, I normally work with my Afghan hook. However, if these next 2 rows are uncomfortable for you using an Afghan hook, because it is kind of long and a little awkward, switch to the same size regular crochet hook. Now I'm going to chain 2, and I like to stick it under this back loop and do a yarn over and pull up. And now we're going down to the first 3. We're continuing the stitch, but we're only going to have 3. We're going through the next 3 so it looks like we're doing our Afghan basic stitch, and I have 5 loops on my hook, but now I'm going to make the flower by doing a yarn over and pulling it all the way through and closing it up with a slip stitch. Now the rest of the flowers are going to be the same, but they're a little different than this first one. We've got our loop already on the hook, and now we're going into that eye or the center of that slip stitch and pulling up our second loop. Now we're going down to the last stitch we had made on the previous flower, doing a yarn over and pulling it up. And now we're working through the next two just as if we were doing the simple stitch. And again, I have 5 loops on my hook, doing the yarn over, pulling it through all 5, locking it up with a slip stitch. So we'll repeat that flower. I've got the loop on my hook. I'm inserting it into the eye or the center. I'm working through that last stitch exactly the same, pulling it up, and now I'm going through 2 new stitches. So I'm still continuing the look of the basic stitch, yarn over, pull it through those 5, close it up with the slip stitch. Now we're down to the end of our row, and we're going to continue. We're doing the insert the hook, going through that last stitch and working through the next 2 stitches, and this is going to be our last flower. So we've got the 5 loops on there, closing it up with the slip stitch. And now I'm going to end off the row. I've got my 1 loop up here. I'm going to repeat by pulling up that last, and now I want to go through my edge, my chains there, to finish up that edge. And I have 3 loops on my hook, and I'm going to yarn over and pull through all 3. Now when I turn my row, some people chain, but I don't like to, because it kind of leaves a space. So I'm going through, my eye was right there. My eye in the center of the flower was right there. And now we're going to do 2 half double crochets in each eye. So it's a yarn over, go through the center of that eye, yarn over, pull it through, and I make 2 half double crochets. And it's kind of easy you can look to the front to see where your eye is, but now these are becoming quite clear. You skip a stitch there and you can see your eye or center of the flower that has 2 double crochets in it, or half double crochets. And we're going to continue down the row. And this is my last eye in this row, or the last flower center in this row. And I want to add, you've got your last stitch there. Be sure to add 1 half double crochet in that space. Now we're going to turn, and this is the time now, if you've been using a regular hook, you would switch back to your Afghan hook, because we're going to start to put loops back on the hook. So we're going under that first stitch. You don't skip any of them. We're going under the first stitch there, and you're going under those top 2 loops and bringing a loop up on your hook. And you'll start to notice as you go across the row, you're leaving a border or an edge, a line on top of the flower motif. Work across the row and work in your last. Let's see, I've got 3, 6, 9, so I need 1 more, and I'm going into that last section. But now we've got to make sure we get our little chain at the end. So I'm going under that loop and another loop in the back here, a little bit tight. Where am I? There I am. And pulling it up. So you see I went under that one and I went through another one in the back so I can have my chain again. And this is where it's crucial to know how many loops you are supposed to have on the hook. I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 11. And that's why it's so important, because especially at this end here, you can forget to add a loop. And now I'm just doing my normal yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through, and I'm ready then when I get to the end of the row to begin again with a Tunisian simple stitch. And I'll do one, well no, I think I'll end off. But you can do as many of the simple stitch rows as you want before you do another Marguerite row. And I'm going to end off. To end off the edge, be sure to do, if I had done 4 rows to begin with, I'm going to end off with 4 rows of that simple stitch so I have a nice balanced design. But now I'm going to end off my fabric. So you continue with the stitch that you're making. We skip the edge. We just act as if we're going to do another simple stitch. But now I can do a slip stitch to go off, but I really prefer doing a single crochet. I just kind of like the look of it better. So I continue working my stitch, but now instead of keeping it on the loop, I'm making it a single crochet. So I'm removing it from my Afghan hook. And so you work your single crochets, continuing in that, creating that pattern so it looks the same up the row. And when I get to the end, I want to make sure that I don't forget these last 2. So make sure you go over under your last 2 loops also to finish off your edge. And then you have a nice centered row of flowers within your simple stitch. If you'd like to see any free patterns, just go to simpleandsensational.com.